the Steelers made a handful of more additions to their coaching staff official. I think biggest amongst them, naming Brian Angelico, who we discussed on yesterday's show as offensive coordinator. That's now official, as well as Danny Crossman as special teams coordinator. We've discussed him before. Joe Witt Jr. as assistant head coach and secondary coach. And then a familiar name, a familiar foe, former Cincinnati Bengal, Domata Pico as defensive line coach, and Pat Riley, no, not the L.A. Lakers, Miami Heat Pat Riley, Pat Riley as defensive quality control coach. So
I didn't hear that one. Okay.
5 new official announcements by the Steelers last night. But, of course, Matt, chief most amongst them, offensive coordinator, now official, Brian Angelico.
And we did touch on him. I mean, he comes from a great offensive organization, offensive mind. It's like plucking somebody from McVay or Shanahan to me. It's at that level. And by all accounts, he was very, very important in that process as like the number 2 dude, the right-hand man type of deal. This is going to sound negative, and I don't mean it that way.
Okay.
But the Steelers have a pretty crazy lineage going back to Coach Mitchell as D-line coaches.
Boy, do they ever.
Yeah. And Pico's just young. You know, I don't know if he's good. I assume they think he's a good coach. I'm not saying he's a bad coach, but that's a hard position to coach. And people I trust have equated it to being like a lion tamer, because you get a lot of big personalities with some obscene talents, you know, all across the defensive front.
Just apex predators.
Apex predators. And I always joke, like, boy, that's like, you know, trying to block a cheetah. Then you got to block a rhino. Then you got to block a gorilla. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many varieties of
then some pterodactyls,
right?
At you.
Yeah, velociraptors. So that's a tougher job and a more important job than you think. They must have extreme faith in Pico, but he has not coached long and does not have much of a resume. He's just young in the coaching world.
This upcoming season will be just his 3rd year coaching.
Yeah.
So I think it says something to how quickly he's ascended.
I mean, maybe he's just he's young Sheldon, you know. I mean, I don't know. He could be.
He 2 years ago, 2024, was with the Dallas Cowboys as a defensive assistant, 1 year. And then last year, he was the defensive line coach of Colorado, the Buffs. Deion Sanders.
Primetime, yeah.
And those guys. And then now Steelers defensive line coach. So you're right. I mean, it's been a very rapid ascent for him in these coaching ranks.
It also makes me wonder, are they going to add an old gent in that room too, you know, as the assistant or something along those lines? A name you didn't mention, I think his last name's Howe, but he's been rumored to be the outside linebacker edge coach, and he comes from Montana State.
Yeah, Sean Howe.
And really, the edge guys are similar, and he's also similar in that he doesn't have a lot of experience. So, like, if that ends up being true, your whole entire defensive front is being coached by guys probably Cam Hayward's age or younger that don't really have experience.
And remember, I mean, Mike McCarthy talked about this.
Yeah.
You need the guys that have been in the league coaching for 20, 30 years. You need the young guys that are cutting their teeth and grinding it out and hungry to prove themselves.
Which I'm all for. I want a variety.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is interesting, though, because when you look at it, too, so many of that collective that we just referenced are veteran guys like Cam Hayward, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith.
Sure.
Those guys don't need an expert coach to continue their development and their success.
But Benton and Harmon and your second-round pick next year.
And even Herbig to an extent, and Jack Sawyer and guys that we know that they're going to add to that, absolutely. So I'm with you. That's a very interesting one.
This is something to keep an eye on. Do they add a
quick
senior assistant on defense or something who has a D-line background? Or I don't know.
Yeah, and you mentioned Sean Howe, outside linebackers coach. That is being, again, that's still in the reported stage, not officially official. But, yeah, it would be his first NFL job. He's been at Tennessee, USC, NC State, Coastal Carolina, a lot of different college programs and good ones too. But
different than coaching TJ Watt.
It is much different than coaching grown men who are making $30, $40 million a year.
That are your age.
100%. So, yeah, we talked about Angelico pretty extensively yesterday. I'm with you. I think you're plucking him from one of those trees that you'd like to have some of that fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. Bring those ideas with you.
Absolutely. You would like to have some of that fruit. Danny Crossman, special teams guy, we discussed a little bit. And then Joe Witt Jr., I think, is probably the one that we haven't mentioned too much, assistant head coach and secondary coach for him heading here in Mike McCarthy's staff in year one.
Another huge job because it's a lot of human beings. I mean, if secondary coach, now I'm sure he'll have a safeties guy and a corners guy or whatever. He won't be alone in charge of all the defensive backs. But I do think it's a feather in his cap, to be like, we're going to give you the assistant head coach title too. I mean, that's more money, that's more respect, that's all that stuff.
Well, he spent the last 2 years as the Commanders' defensive coordinator.
Yes.
First year, obviously, successful. Last year, not so much. I do like that.
Yes.
That, to me, is kind of the opposite of taking a chance on a younger guy, is we're going to bring in a veteran guy who was just serving in a major role as defensive coordinator, and now he's just in charge of the secondary.
Yeah. Maybe he's a little overqualified.
Maybe he's a little overqualified for what we're having him do. So I do like that blend. And last time, Matt, that he was working as a secondary coach, specifically secondary and defensive pass game coordinator prior to the Commanders, was under Mike McCarthy in Dallas, 21, 22, and 23. And during that time, the Cowboys led the NFL with 59 interceptions during his 3 years working with the secondary.
Okay. The one thing I was going to say is you could be like, well, Washington's defense wasn't very good. And it wasn't, but I think it was close to the Raiders in terms of lack of talent. I mean, there's some similarity. This year in particular. I thought they were really, really poor on that side of the ball, just in terms of personnel. And I looked at a couple of the Commanders' final numbers. They weren't as bad as you think. I mean, they weren't a bottom 6 or 7 type defense, despite having bottom 6 or 7 type talent.
He's got an extensive background. Started his coaching career at Auburn in the year 2000, spent some time in college, and then 2007, Falcons assistant DB coach, 2008, Packers defensive quality control, and then 2009 to 2017, long stretch there of nearly a decade. He was the Packers cornerback coach, and then the pass game coordinator, and then that same title with the Browns, secondary and pass game, same title with the Falcons, secondary and pass game coordinator. Those 3 years in Dallas, and then 2 years as a defensive coordinator with the Washington Commanders. So that's an experienced seasoned dude. Yeah,
and the pass game coordinator stuff I like as well. Having that thrown in there. Now it's defensive guys, obviously, but again, hard to comment on assistant coaches. It just is, but I like the approach they've taken to building the staff.
Same. And then finally, Pat Riley, defensive quality control coach. He was an offensive assistant for the Houston Texans last year. So he was part of that Texans group that just won at Acrisure Stadium a few weeks ago. Prior to his
I'll
time,
pluck somebody from that aggressive group. Yeah.
Absolutely, I'm cool with that. Prior to his time with Houston, he was with the Jags as assistant linebackers coach and defensive quality control. Before that, was a defensive analyst for Alabama and defensive coordinator at UCLA. So
is he at Bama with Saban?
He sure was.
Good. Okay. Good.
Man, you talk about plucking fruit from a tree.
Yeah,
that's.
I say Ryan's played for Saban. I assume that's how he got to Houston, was through Saban connections.
Makes sense.
Okay,
would make sense.
And I'm all cool with that treat.
I'm completely in with that.
Now people might not know what a quality control coach is. He's the lowest guy on the ladder. I mean, he's kind of like at Pitt. We would have back in the day. I know things have changed, and you know better than I do. We had a D-line coach, we had a DN coach, we had a linebacker coach, a secondary coach, and a defensive GA. And he was he cut up tape, and I was a GA. We went and got dinners and that kind of stuff too.
Yes.
The NFL level, it's a little more glorified than that. You get paid better. I mean, I made $12,000 a year. He makes a real salary.
I bet you he'll be making more than $12,000 a year.
Yeah, he made a real salary, but he's low guy in the totem pole. He's a new coach, so if people are looking at him like, man, why would you hire that guy? Like, because he's an up and comer. I mean, he's not asked to coordinate anything.
Was that your first salary? Was $12,000?
I was there for 3 years, which was long for a GA. I was $12,000, which is what they paid. And I was the only GA in history to that point that got a raise. I went up to 18 the last year. Yeah.
My first job,
which was like, woohoo, I'm buying.
My first job,
it was by the way, it was like 90 cents an hour.
Sure,
we figured that out every year.
Matt, my first job, working for the hockey team in Ohio, my salary was $24,000 a year, and I worked 70 hours a week. I mean,
Yeah,
80, I mean, if you broke
we had
it
a lot
down,
of 100-hour weeks
a
during
lot
the
of
season.
a lot of bus rides, and we played a 60-game schedule, home and away, and I was every game. I mean, I went months without a day off.
Yeah.
$24,000 a year. Now, I did get 6% of all season ticket packages that I would sell. So
that's cool.
That during the off season, I would hit that pretty hard because every ticket thing or sponsorship thing, I got 6% of the deal.
But a season ticket package for that level's not real pricey.
It's like
either.
$200. Right. Give me the full season for $180 if you sign up before March.
Yeah.